Prince William has just delivered a blow so cold, so calculated, and so unexpected that even seasoned royal watchers are left speechless. He is stripping Camilla's family of their home. Not asking. Not negotiating. Stripping. And the lawyers? They've uncovered a bombshell so explosive it could rewrite everything we thought we knew about the Parker Bowles inheritance, the quiet deal struck behind closed doors, and the true price of loyalty inside the House of Windsor. If you've ever wondered what happens when the future king decides the old arrangements no longer serve the crown, stay right here, because this is not gossip. This is the moment the gloves came off. Music softens into tense underscore. Let's set the scene properly. For years, the public has been sold a polished story, King Charles and Queen Camilla, the late-in-life love story, the eventual acceptance, the carefully managed image of unity. Camilla's children and extended family were folded into the edges of royal life with a certain discretion. Properties, residences, quiet financial understandings. These things rarely make the front pages. They live in the shadows of trusts, lease agreements, and private arrangements that most of us never see. Until now, sources close to the situation describe a rapid sequence of events that began not with a public announcement, but with a series of legal letters. Dry, formal, devastating in their implications. Prince William, acting with the full weight of his position as heir and as a man who has spent years watching the institution from the inside, has moved to reclaim a significant family property long associated with Camilla's side. The details are still emerging, but the core claim is clear. The home in question, tied historically and financially to arrangements made during Charles' long relationship with Camilla, is no longer protected in the way her family believed. And the lawyers have found something. A document, a clause, a historical agreement that changes the legal footing entirely. One senior legal observer familiar with the papers called it the kind of bombshell that forces everyone to the table. Another simply said, this was not supposed to surface. Think about what this means. For decades, the Parker Bowles name has occupied a delicate space in the royal orbit. Camilla's first marriage, the divorce, the years of public hostility, the eventual wedding, the coronation, every step required careful management of image and, quietly, of assets. Properties that once served as private retreats or family bases became part of a broader web of royal and near-royal holdings. Some were leased. Some were held in trust. Some rested on understandings that were never meant to be tested in open court. William, it appears, has decided the time for those understandings is over. Those close to the Prince of Wales describe a man who has grown increasingly focused on streamlining the monarchy, reducing financial exposure, and ensuring that every asset serves a clear purpose for the institution rather than for extended personal networks. In private conversations, he has reportedly expressed frustration with arrangements that predate his own generation's priorities. The result? A decisive legal push that has left Camilla's relatives stunned. Imagine the moment the letter arrived. The formal language, the reference to title, to historical ownership, to precise wording of an old agreement that most of the family may not even have known existed in that form. One source claims the discovery by the legal team was almost accidental. An archival review that was supposed to be routine turned up a document that shifted the entire balance of rights. Suddenly, what had been treated as a secure family residence became something far more precarious. This is not the first time property and power have collided inside the royal family. History is littered with examples of estates changing hands when the political or personal wind shifted. But the speed and the directness of William's move have shocked even those who expected eventual reforms. Camilla has spent years carefully building her role as queen consort, navigating public opinion, and maintaining a low-key but steady presence. Her family has largely stayed out of the harshest glare. That protection may be evaporating. Insiders suggest that the bombshell document relates to the original terms under which the property was made available, terms that tied its continued use to specific conditions surrounding Charles' lifetime or to broader crown interests. When those conditions are read in the cold light of current legal advice, the family's claim weakens dramatically. William's team is not simply asking for vacant possession. They are asserting a right that, if upheld, would leave Camilla's relatives with little room to maneuver. The reaction inside certain circles has been described as pure disbelief. One person close to the situation said the family had operated for years under the assumption that the arrangement was settled. Another noted that any public fight would be catastrophic for the carefully managed image of unity that Charles and Camilla have worked so hard to project. Yet William, it seems, is prepared to accept the short-term turbulence for what he views as long-term clarity. And here's where the story deepens. Because this is not only about one house. It is about precedent. If the heir to the throne can successfully reclaim an asset long associated with the Queen's family, what does that signal about other informal arrangements? About the quiet financial networks that have grown around the monarchy over decades? About the balance of power between the king and the future king? Observers note that William has always been more guarded, more institutional in his instincts than his father. Where Charles often pursued personal projects and long-standing relationships with a certain romantic determination, William is said to approach the crown as a structure that must be protected, modernized, and, when necessary, pruned. The decision to move against a property linked to Camilla's side fits that pattern perfectly. Legal experts watching from the outside caution that nothing is final until the process plays out. Challenges can be mounted. Negotiations can still happen behind closed doors. But the mere fact that the lawyers uncovered and are now acting on this bombshell has already changed the atmosphere. Trust has been damaged. Assumptions have been shattered. And the public, once it fully grasps the scale of the claim, will demand answers. Picture the conversations that must be happening right now. In private rooms, over secure lines, between advisors who suddenly find themselves on opposite sides of a ledger they thought was settled. Camilla herself is said to be deeply concerned, not only for the practical implications for her family, but for the optics at a time when the monarchy can least afford internal fractures. Charles, according to some reports, is caught between loyalty to his wife and the institutional realities his son is forcing into the open. William, for his part, has remained characteristically silent in public. No statements, no briefings, just a quiet, relentless pressure of legal process. That silence, in its own way, is the loudest statement of all. It says a decision has been made. The review has been completed. The bombshell has been found. And the stripping of the home is no longer a theoretical possibility. It is underway. So what exactly is in that document the lawyers discovered? Why was it overlooked for so long? And how far is William prepared to go if resistance hardens? These are the questions now racing through every serious royal watching circle. Some believe the property in question carries symbolic weight far beyond its market value, that reclaiming it is a deliberate signal about the future shape of the family farm. Others see a more practical motive, reducing the number of residences and financial commitments that do not directly serve official duties. Whatever the deeper strategy, the immediate human cost is real. Members of Camilla's family who had treated the home as a stable base now face the prospect of upheaval. The emotional impact of watching an arrangement they believed secure unravel under legal pressure cannot be overstated. And yet, from William's perspective, the institution comes first. Sentiment, even long-standing sentiment, cannot override clear title and clear purpose. The story is still unfolding. New details continue to surface in careful, controlled leaks. Each one adds another layer to the picture of a decisive prince who has decided that certain chapters of the past must be closed. The bombshell is real. The legal machinery is in motion, and the shockwaves are only beginning to spread. What happens next will tell us a great deal about the kind of monarchy William intends to lead. Will there be a quiet settlement that allows both sides to save face? Or are we watching the opening move in a broader reordering of royal assets and alliances? The answers are coming, and when they arrive, they may prove even more explosive than the initial discovery. Stay with me, because the full picture is only starting to come into focus. The lawyers have found something that changes the game. William has chosen to act, and Camilla's family is now facing the very real possibility of losing a home that, until very recently, they believed was theirs to keep. The palace walls are ears. The legal teams are working through the night, and the future king has drawn a line. That line is sharper than most people realize. Behind the polished public image of a dutiful heir and a composed queen consort, a quiet but ruthless recalculation is taking place. William is not simply reclaiming a house. He is sending a message that the soft agreements of the previous generation will no longer be allowed to dilute the institution he is preparing to inherit. The property in question, long treated by Camilla's relatives as a secure family foothold, has become the first visible casualty of that new philosophy. Sources familiar with the legal review described the bombshell document as something that had sat quietly in the archive for years, its full implications never fully tested. It is said to contain precise language linking continued occupation of the residence to conditions that no longer hold in the same way. Once the lawyers placed those clauses under modern scrutiny, the family's position shifted from comfortable assumption to sudden vulnerability. What had felt permanent suddenly looked provisional. And William's team moved with a kind of speed that leaves little room for sentiment. Inside certain private circles, the mood has turned brittle. There is talk of late-night calls, of urgent meetings between advisors who once worked in the same direction and now find themselves on opposite sides of a ledger. Camilla is described by those close to her as deeply unsettled, not only by the practical threat to her family's stability, but by the public narrative that will inevitably follow. A queen consort whose relatives are being stripped of a home by the future king is not the image of seamless continuity the palace prefers. Yet the process continues. Charles, according to several accounts, is caught in an uncomfortable middle. Loyalty to his wife pulls one way. The institutional logic his son is enforcing pulls the other. Those who have observed the king in recent weeks note a certain weariness, as if the long struggle to secure Camilla's place has left him less willing, or less able, to fight another quiet battle over property and precedent. William, by contrast, appears unmoved by the emotional temperature. His focus remains on clarity of title, reduction of informal liabilities, and the long-term shape of the monarchy he will one day lead. Consider the broader implications. If this move succeeds, it sets a powerful precedent. Other quiet arrangements, other residences, other financial understandings that grew around the royal family during the decades of Charles and Camilla's relationship could face similar scrutiny. The soft edges that once allowed personal networks to coexist with official structures may be trimmed. For a generation raised on the idea that the monarchy must modernize or risk irrelevance, William's approach looks decisive. For those who benefited from the older, more flexible system, it feels like a sudden and unforgiving correction. Legal observers caution that the outcome is not yet written in stone. Challenges can still be mounted. Negotiations can still take place behind closed doors. Settlements can be crafted that allow both sides a measure of dignity. But the mere existence of the Bombshell document has already altered the balance of power. The family's previous sense of security has been replaced by uncertainty. Every day that the legal process advances without a public resolution only deepens a sense that the old protections are eroding, and the public will not remain in the dark forever. Once the scale of the claim becomes clear, questions will multiply. Why was this document overlooked for so long? What other historical agreements might surface under similar review? How far is William prepared to go in reordering the financial and residential landscape around the crown? These are not abstract concerns. They strike at the heart of how the modern monarchy manages its assets, its relationships, and its image. Imagine the conversations happening right now in private rooms across the country. Relatives who once treated the house as a given now calculate timelines, legal costs, and the emotional toll of displacement. Advisors who once spoke of continuity now speak of risk management. And somewhere in the middle of it all sits Camilla, the woman who spent decades navigating public hostility only to find, in the later years of her life, that the quiet rewards of that long struggle may themselves be subject to revision. William's silence in public only amplifies the impact. No statements. No carefully worded briefings. Just a steady pressure process. That silence communicates something more powerful than any speech. The decision has been taken, the legal footing has been assessed, and the heir is prepared to live with the consequences. In an institution that has often preferred ambiguity and quiet compromise, this clarity feels almost radical. Some will argue that the move is overdue, that the monarchy cannot afford indefinite informal obligations, and that every asset must serve a clear institutional purpose. Others will see it as a cold calculation that risks fracturing the very unity Charles and Camilla worked so hard to project. Both perspectives can exist at once. The truth, as so often with royal stories, lies in the tension between them. What cannot be denied is the human cost. A home is more than walls and a roof. It carries memory, routine, a sense of belonging. For members of Camilla's family who had come to rely on that stability, the sudden threat of its loss is profound. The legal language may be dry, but the effect is anything but. And yet, from the perspective of the future king, the institution's long-term health must take precedence over individual comfort. That is a hard logic now in play. As the lawyers continue their work and the private discussions intensify, one thing is already clear. The old assumptions no longer hold. The bombshell has been found. The claim has been asserted, and the stripping of the home, once unthinkable, is now a live possibility. Whether it ends in a quiet settlement or a more public reckoning remains to be seen. But the direction of travel is unmistakable. William has chosen to act. Camilla's family is absorbing the shock. The palace is managing the fallout as best it can. And the public, once the full picture emerges, will judge the wisdom of the decision for themselves. This is more than a property dispute. It is a statement about power, priority, and the future shape of the House of Windsor. The lawyers uncovered a document that changed the legal ground. The heir decided the time for soft arrangements had passed, and in doing so, he has forced everyone, inside the family and outside it, to confront a new reality. The story is still unfolding. New details will surface. Fresh reactions will emerge. The full consequences may take months or even years to settle. But the first decisive move has already been made. If this kind of deep, unfolding royal drama matters to you, if you want to stay ahead of the next revelation rather than scrambling to catch up, make sure you are subscribed and have notifications switched on. The next chapter could arrive faster than anyone expects. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Is William right to enforce his hard line, or has he underestimated the cost of tearing up the old understandings? I read everyone. The palace walls still have ears. The legal teams are still working. And the future king has already shown that when he draws a line, he intends to hold it. This is only the beginning.